from the studios of Farm Journal Broadcast.
Coming up on AgDay, the Senate rolls out a tax plan that looks much different than the House on some key issues. The Federal Reserve Banks release land values for the latest quarter. In agribusiness, a focus on feed.
Markets are still markets, and when good opportunities present themselves, you need to address them.
Machinery Pete steps back into the 70s and shrimp farming in the Lone Star State.
AgDay, presented by the Chevy Silverado. High-strength steel for high-strength dependability.
Good morning, I'm Clinton Griffiths. As the House prepares to vote on tax reform this week, there's a great divide between the chambers as what this tax overhaul should look like. The Senate rolling out its tax plan on Thursday, just as the House Ways and Means Committee approved its version. The House is expected to vote this week. The Senate version maintains 7 tax brackets, while the House version is 4. The Senate's plan doubles the exemption for the estate tax, but does not eliminate it. The House plan repeals the estate tax after 6 years. Farm Journal Washington correspondent Jim Wiesmeyer says when combing through the House's initial tax plan, it's a net positive for agriculture.
That doesn't mean it's all positive, because you have the ag co-ops who are in a tizzy right now relative to Section 199, that they could lose up to $2 billion into payments that the co-op members got in 2016 because of the changes relative to the pass-through language, for pass-through business, of which the majority of businesses are. But in agriculture, you had immediate expensing for 5 years. You had the estate tax doubled for the exemptions for 5 years, repealed in 6 years. That's the House version. And you had the continuation of stepped up basis. So there are some favorable things in there relative to agriculture.
The Senate Finance Committee is expected to mark up the measure this week, but full Senate action not expected until after the Thanksgiving break. While GOP leaders hope to get the bill to the president before Christmas, Wiesmeyer says the timeline could slip into early 2018. Ag Secretary Sonny Perdue speaking to farm broadcasters in Kansas City last week about life in Washington. When asked about getting his staff confirmed and the hang-up regarding Bill Northey, Perdue says he's trying to be respectful of the Senate, but at some point may have to approach leadership.
Bill Northey obviously is very important. God help us if he's not on board by January, for heaven's sakes. We hope to get that done. I will probably go and make direct appeals to the leadership of the Senate if it goes on that long. We're trying to be respectful, but there is a limit to that.
Perdue also renewing his support for presidential advisor and former chief scientist nominee Sam Clovis. He says he expects Clovis to remain employed at USDA. A new report from the Federal Reserve Bank in St. Louis showing a glimmer of hope when it comes to farmland. Their economists say values of quality farmland and ranch land all rose. The district serves part of the southern corn belt in the Mid-South. According to the St. Louis Fed, farmland values rose about 1% in the third quarter. That's compared to a year ago. Ranchland and pastureland values spiked nearly 4%. Now, in contrast, cash rents continue to fall, down about 1% for farmland, a 3% drop in ranchland. Ag bankers say farmland and cash rents are going to be a major part of the conversation in 2018.
We're going to have to pick and choose which properties you're going to farm this year as a partnership between the bank and the borrower. Which properties are you going to choose to farm? Because, holding the same high land base when corn was $8 and today it's just two different stories. Land rent renegotiations, either with existing tenants or new tenants on that ground, will drive some direction for land values. And I suspect they will come down some, but there's still, and again, for good ground, there still seems to be a market to rent that ground.
In the Kansas City district, which covers much of the Great Plains, the value of non-irrigated cropland declined 3%, irrigated land down 6%, and ranch land retreated 2% from a year ago. And in the Chicago district, covering the heart of the Corn Belt, overall land values were down just 1% from a year ago. While much of the market talk last week focused on USDA's projection of a record corn yield, the Florida orange crop estimate also brought a surprise to the industry. The Ag Department says Florida's orange industry did not sustain as much damage from Hurricane Irma as previously thought. at least according to USDA's data. It pegs the all-orange crop at 50 million boxes. A month ago, it projected 54 million boxes. Now, estimates following the September storm put losses at 70%. While not as dramatic as expected, the Florida orange production still at levels not seen since World War II. Why don't we start the week with a look at harvest and some crop progress, and for that we turn to meteorologist Mike Hoffman. Mike?
Good morning, Clinton. While harvest continues in Nebraska, this farmer is proud to wave the red, white, and blue. Randy of U Farms, based in Pilger, Nebraska, shared this photo of his combine. Randy's father died while serving in the Army during World War II. Later, his stepfather was a bombardier during the war. He says they honor their memory by flying the flag every day. Lauren Turley is cutting beans in Union County, Kentucky. She says most farmers in the area have finished or just have a few days left. She says yields are better than anticipated. USDA says 63% of beans have been cut in Kentucky, 9 points behind the 5-year average. USDA will release an updated report this afternoon. Now, taking a look at the rainfall from last week, you can see some of the heavier amounts in the Tennessee and Ohio River valleys. We'll take a closer look at that and have your forecast for the coming week in a few minutes, but first, here are some hometown temps.
Farm Journal On Air is the go-to app for American agriculture. AgDay, AgriTalk, U.S. Farm Report, and more. 24/7 access to all of your favorite shows, TV and radio. In your hands, on demand. Farm Journal On Air. Download the app today.
All right, when we come back, we'll check on markets and talk about opportunities for feed buyers. And later, of course, Machinery Pete stops by.
Stay tuned, folks. Coming up, we're going to talk 1970s equipment.
Plus, there's nothing small about this crop in Texas. We go from pond to plate later on AgDay.
This is Machinery Pete, inviting you to check out my new website, machinerypete.com. Offering farmers tens of thousands of used equipment listings to search, let Machinery Pete help you find and value your next piece of used equipment.
In agribusiness, it was a mixed day for commodities. Let's see how markets close this week from the floor of the CME in Chicago.
Today's soybeans were up. After yesterday's USDA report, the futures really stopped the fall and retraced back just a few cents. Brazil planting is approximately 3/4 of the way, maybe not quite 3/4 of the way finished, and it's slightly ahead of schedule. So that really kept the rebound from, really coming back. But the market still is tempered somewhat. I think that it's going to be very difficult to keep this market higher as we continue to move into the last couple of months of the season. Corn also rebounded today too. The futures were, did find a bottom after the downward breakout of that recent channel. There was some worry about it. Interestingly enough, when the market was up at the 350 level even, I think a lot of farmers and a lot of people were saying, I don't want to sell the market that low. And it's certainly now that selling the market down there looks like now it's up there. So it's really difficult for all the traders in the corn market, and farmers are still holding a lot of that grain. That's all from the floor at the CME Group. I'm Virginia McGathy.
Grain prices may not be exciting for farmers, but feed buyers continue to see lower input costs. Hein Morgan has more from the road.
Here now with Mike North of Commodity Risk Management Group. Mike, let's look at the feed side of things. You look at corn prices and we've kind of had this stagnant trade. Are you still suggesting that these feed users lock in these prices if they haven't already?
Yeah, especially if you're looking at protein and you see soybean meal get down towards or below $300, that is historically a buy signal. And so as we approach those realms, it'll be an opportunity for people to take advantage of, because as we follow the normal seasonality, we watch prices move higher as we head towards summer, and we saw that same thing this year with a lot of soybeans on hand. We could see the same thing this next year, so take advantage of those opportunities as they come. Moreover, on corn, what if the acreage discussion as we work our way into next year shifts away from corn, and suddenly there's this threat, let's say, to the amount of inventory we have? That presents a risk for people using feed. So be smart about prices. Don't be don't be so relaxed that you pass up good ones.
But when we look at some of these rotations, we've heard some firms come out and say, you know what, we're going to see the same number of corn acres that we're going to see soybean acres this year. Maybe see soybean acres actually outpace corn. How likely is that, Mike, when we have some of these farmers that are on a rotation that will continue to stay with that rotation and not follow the price?
Well, and that is actually one of the arguments being presented for more corn acres in 2018.
More corn acres.
Because we've gone 2 years with heavier soybeans, the rotation leads us back towards corn. And so, you raise a great point. If we continue to migrate towards more soybeans, that helps us on the protein side, hurts us maybe a little bit on the forage side. But bottom line is markets are still markets, and when good opportunities present themselves, you need to address them. You can't walk away just because you think there's going to be a lot more inventory.
All right, Mike North, Commodity Risk Management Group. We need to take a quick break, but we'll be back with more on Ag Day.
Cut through the uncertainty in the markets. Give Mike a call at 608-764-0012. Ag Day, brought to you by Credenz soybean seed from Bayer, designed using smart genetics with tailored varieties to fit any field condition. Ag Day weather, brought to you by Kawasaki and the new Mule Pro FXR side-by-side. Ride like a boss with high-end styling and rugged capability.
Welcome back to Ag Day. Here, meteorologist Mike Hoffman. Mike, if we look at rainfall over the last week, not as heavy as we've seen previous weeks and months.
No, definitely not. And it's mostly east of the Mississippi River, as you can see there. You can see a few spots like in northeast, north central Texas, across the northern plains and the Pacific Northwest, northwest Washington and Oregon. But like I said, most of it's been in the east. And in fact, we zoom in, we can see a few areas did get 3-4 inches in parts of middle Tennessee and also parts of the Ohio Valley, especially southeastern Indiana into the southern portions of Ohio and western Mississippi there. Did get some decent rainfall. Drought monitor showing that it is still very dry, and unfortunately this is just west of the Mississippi where the heavier rain occurred east of there, but we've gotten into severe drought in parts of Arkansas, southern Missouri, a few other spots around that area as well. It remains to be a pretty bad drought from western South Dakota into eastern Montana, but it hasn't really improved a whole lot over the past few weeks, but that was a lot worse earlier in the season if you remember that. Here's the jet stream as we start the week. We have this very cold air over the east. Even though the trough doesn't look that impressive, that will be moving away, so we do moderate temperatures across the eastern half of the country. You can see a little ripple moving through the Great Lakes during the middle of the week. Then a stronger trough digs into the Great Lakes as we head toward the end of the week. This will bring another shot of very cold air. And then you'll notice we get one more piece of energy starting to dig into the eastern trough, and this could be even colder air coming right off of northern Canada as we head into the following week, the week of Thanksgiving. So that is something we're going to have to watch. That could get interesting if you're going to be traveling later that week. All right, temperatures this week, we're going below normal for the Great Lakes, northern Terra states back into the northwest, above normal from southern Wyoming to northern Mexico and over into Mississippi, near normal elsewhere. Precipitation this week from Tennessee, Kentucky northward, above normal, below normal for the far southeast, most of the plain states, and then above normal in the northwest all the way down into northern California. 30-day outlook for temperatures, below normal, the Great Lakes, northern plains, northwest, above normal through the southern tier of states, and the 30-day outlook for precipitation, below normal in the far northern plains, the southwest, and also from North Carolina northeastward. That's a look across the country. Now let's take a look at some local forecasts. Las Vegas, Nevada, first of all, partly sunny and comfortable, high temperature of 77 degrees. Huron, South Dakota, a mixture of sunshine and clouds, milder, high of 53. And Knoxville, Tennessee, mostly cloudy, rather mild, high around 58.
Well, up next, Machinery Pete takes us back to the 1970s, and we'll head to Texas to meet the big fish in a small pond. Shrimp pond, that is.
Ag Day, brought to you by Liberty Herbicide, the simply better solution for superior weed control and a stronger yield. Machinery Pete is brought to you by John Deere. Where can you find the most comprehensive inventory of John Deere certified pre-owned tractors, combines, and sprayers? MachineFinder.com. Sometimes the best new addition to your fleet isn't new.
Oh, Machinery Pete may want some bell bottoms and disco this week. He's headed back to the 70s for today's look at auction prices.
All right, folks, today we're going back to the 1970s. Now, don't worry, we're not going to break out the polyester wide-collared shirts and the bell-bottoms. We're just going to talk 70s machinery. Now, I covered a farm retirement auction last Tuesday up in northwest Nebraska. Had a pair of John Deere tractors on them, both from the 70s, and it was really interesting. The first one to sell was this 1978 4840 power shift. It had 9,496 hours on it, oil changed every 100 hours, really sharp. And it sold for $17,000. I thought that was a pretty good buy, maybe even a little bit under the money. I've actually seen 9 4840s this year sold for over $20,000. Most folks at the sale were thinking 20 to 25K. Now the next tractor up was this 1975 4430, again power shift, and it had 9,664 hours on it, almost 2,800 hours on an overhaul, and it went for more money, $17,200. Now, not uncommon there, the 4840s, the larger models, tend to sell a little bit soft, just more buyer demand on the smaller 4440s, even 4430s. Now, while we're on the topic of 1970s, one more for you folks. A week ago Saturday, on a collector auction in North Carolina, this 1977 Ford Bronco, 16,000 original one-owner miles on it, always shedded, was up for sale. You want to make a guess what it went for? $40,500. All that buyer has to do now is break out that polyester shirt and they're ready to cruise 70s style.
Next, it's harvest time, including a Texas shrimp crop.
AgDay, brought to you by the Enlist Weed Control System. More weed control, less drift and volatility, maximum yield potential. In the Country, brought to you by Kubota's M5 series, bringing new levels of comfort to hard work. Learn more at Kubota.com or visit your local Kubota dealer today.
Shrimp is the fruit of the sea. You can barbecue it, boil it, broil it, bake it, saute it. There's shrimp kebabs, shrimp creole, shrimp soup, shrimp stew, shrimp salad, shrimp and potatoes, shrimp burger, shrimp sandwich. That's about it.
A memorable scene from the classic film Forrest Gump. Now, boiled or fried, in a salad or in gumbo, however you like your shrimp, Reed Bowers has you covered. He's a Texas' largest shrimp farmer, and Ed Wolf from the Texas Farm Bureau has his story.
When you think of shrimp, you think of the ocean. But a shrimp boat and trawl nets are not the only way to catch America's favorite seafood. Just ask Reed Bowers, a Texas shrimp farmer.
We have 89 ponds, sits on 440 acres of water. We average, say, 17 to 20,000 pounds per pond. And our goal this year is to produce somewhere between 2.4 to 2.5 million pounds of shrimp head on.
Shrimping is in his blood. His dad converted their family rice farm to a shrimp farm decades ago. But the popular prawn wasn't his first choice.
As rice changed a little bit, I looked at doing different things. I really got into shrimp a little bit by accident. I built a few ponds, but my interest was to raise redfish.
The redfish didn't work, so he turned to shrimp. Reed started running the farm right out of high school. A few years ago, he bought the farm from his dad, carrying on the shrimping tradition.
His dad was a farmer, he's a farmer, I'm a farmer, just a different kind of farmer.
The Bowers shrimp are different than their wild Gulf cousins. They're a Pacific white. Reed gets them when they're about the size of an eyelash. They start out in his indoor nursery, about $2 million per tank. Around 20 days later, they're moved to one of his ponds.
Then we'll move them out in the ponds roughly the last week of March, first week of April, because it is a warm water species, so if it gets very cold, they'll die. And also we try to have everything out of the water by November the 1st. A cool front can kill everything we have that's left in the water.
After 80 to 90 days, the shrimp are ready to harvest. The ponds are drained and the shrimp pumped out. A dewatering tower separates the shellfish from the pond water. They're rinsed, packed on ice, and head to the plant.
We produce a truly fresh shrimp. We'll harvest a pond one day, we'll process it the next day, take the heads off, then we'll pack it fresh on ice that same day, and it's in the stores that evening.
Some of his shrimp ends up frozen, ready to ship to grocery stores all over Texas, as well as the freezer section of stores across the U.S. They even process the ever-popular Texas Gulf varieties. Reed grows 2 crops of crustaceans a year, using water from nearby Matagorda Bay. Though his unique crop has its challenges, he's proud to be Texas' largest shrimp farmer, carrying on his dad's vision with the help of his family.
My oldest son worked in the office. My daughter was actually running the heading crew this morning, and then my 2 younger boys like the outdoors like I do, and so they're out here helping me. It's definitely a joy.
So the next time you eat your favorite shrimp entree, don't just think of the ocean, think of Reed and a small crop making a big splash. With the Texas Farm Bureau, Ed Wolf, Collegeport.
Thanks, Ed. And that's all the time we have this morning. We're sure glad you tuned in. Start your week with us. From all of us here at AgDay, I'm Clinton Griffiths. Have a great day.
AgDay, brought to you by Ram Commercial, America's longest-lasting heavy-duty pickups.